Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Swearingen. I'm the author of How to Walk on Water and Other Stories, coming out from New American Press on October 1st. And I'm thrilled to be here with Inside for Indies. I'll show you my office in just a minute. But first I wanted to share one of many books that I've bought at my local indie, the Bookseller, which is just up the street here in Chicago in Lincoln Square. And the book is What It Means When a Man Falls from the Sky by Leslie Arama, a wonderful short story writer. This was her debut. And the story that I'll read to you, or just read the first paragraphs, is called Who Will Greet You at Home? It's speculative. It's a mashup of Nigerian folktale and the horror genre. It's actually a really wonderful story. So here we go. The yarn baby lasted a good month, emitting dry, cotton-soft gurgles and pooping little balls of lint, before Ogechi snagged its thigh on a nail, and it unraveled as she continued walking, mistaking the little huffs for the beginnings of hunger, not the cries of an infant being undone. By the time she noticed, it was too late, the leg a tangle of fiber, and she pulled the string the rest of the way to end it, rather than have the infant grow up maimed. If she was to mother a child, to mute and subdue and fold away parts of herself, the child had to be perfect. Yarn had been a foolish choice, she knew, the stuff for women of leisure who could cradle wool in the comfort of their own cars and insecure houses devoid of loose nails. Not for an assistant hairdresser who took Danfo to work if she had money, walked if she didn't, and lived in an apartment that amounted to a room she could clear in 3 large steps. Women like her had to form their children out of sturdier, more practical material if they were to withstand the dents and scrapes that came with a life like hers. Her mother had formed her from mud and twigs and wrapped her limbs tightly with leaves, like moin, pedestrian items that had produced a pedestrian girl. Ogechi was determined that her child would be a thing of whimsy, soft and pretty, tender and worthy of love, but first she had to go to work. And where she works is at a hair salon where she collects the hair of women and eventually forms it into a monstrous baby. So you'll have to read the rest of that story to find out what happens. Before I show you my office, I just want to give a shout out to some other bookstores in Chicago that have really contributed to just my feeling very at home in this city in the last few years that I've lived here. And there's Women and Children First in Andersonville, a wonderful feminist bookstore that's been around for several decades. There's Volumes Bookstore, where there are incredible author events, and both national and local writers come and meet and share their books and talk to readers. There is Semicolon Books, a Black woman-owned bookstore on Halsted, 52nd Street Books, which is a cooperative bookstore, one of the few, if not the only cooperative bookstore in the country. And so many more, too many for me to name right now. All of those bookstores creating conversations and creating spaces for us to have those conversations. And I was thinking about how I wouldn't actually be here making this video now. I wouldn't be the writer that I am if it wasn't for indie bookstores. I grew up in a small town in rural Wisconsin where there weren't any bookstores, let alone independent bookstores. And it wasn't until I went to college and walked into my first independent bookstore that my whole world opened up. It was a feminist bookstore in Madison, Wisconsin, and the shelves were filled with books by women on subjects that I didn't know people were writing about, and my whole world opened up. And from that time on, there's been so many bookstores in cities and countries that I've lived in where I've been able to encounter books and voices that I would have never encountered otherwise. And it was always because of the booksellers there, whether it was they're writing those little cards that they write often by hand, about books that have moved them, or when you go and talk to your bookseller and tell them, what you're looking for, ask them to suggest something, and you get exactly the book that you need at just that time. So, let's do what we can to support our bookstores, order books online, visit them, ask your booksellers what they need right now, send your friends there. If you can't afford to buy a book right now, see what you can do to point other people in the direction of that bookstore. And the more that they survive, the more that we thrive as a culture. Thank you. So I'm going to make this brief since I've already taken up quite a bit of time doing my reading. This is my office, and in this corner, the most important thing of all, my dog Zelda, who is cowering because there is a thunderstorm right now, so we'll leave her be. But I've got all kinds of bookshelves in here, lots through the house as well. This one is full of short story collections that I've read over the years, and some journals, and some fountain pen ink that I have been collecting and using to make drawings and to write with. Really beautiful stuff from Japan. An old Super 8 film that I made in 7th grade that I'm hoping to get transferred, called Crime Doesn't Pay. It was a silent film. I was already into the crime genre then, and I think I did the film. It was based on the Keystone Cops, just so that I could throw pies in people's faces. The plastic dog that I hide for my dog in the morning so that I can tire her out and I can get work done. A photograph of my father when he was a child with his sister and his cousins up in the North Woods of Wisconsin. And lots of poetry collections, and some nonfiction books. There's my ukulele. I'm trying to learn my painting easel that is not getting much use these days. I hope to get back to that. And on my desk, some of the books that I've been reading. Maggie Cass, Side by Side But Never Face to Face is one. I'm also reading Miles Harvey's King of Confidence, which is a great nonfiction book. And here are some of the binders that I use for my manuscripts. I've got, this is my novel I've been working on, and it's huge. I'm still trying to cut huge swaths of it. I really want that baby to be done so that I can get on to some of the other things that I have. And if you look over here, every writer I know has piles. I'm just like that. And so here are a bunch of binders of other manuscripts that need to get finished. All my writing books. Ruth Bader, who falls over every once in a while and gives me a shock. The gnome that I got at the technical writing company that I used to work for, were making defibrillator manuals, which is really great training for a fiction writer, because you will never want to go back to that kind of writing. And these are some little objects that my friend Johniki sent me, and I get with the challenge of trying to animate them. So I'm going to need to do an animation with some plastic teeth and little piglets and caribou in it. And then this is another bookshelf. These are books that I have bought more recently. My older ones are in other rooms. So there's lots of debut authors here. I've read probably half of these. I still have a lot more to read. The research that I'm doing, I've got a whole stack of fireworks and baking research for the current novel. I went to a fireworks conference, which was kind of terrifying, crazy subculture, and but kind of fun in some weird ways too. And I think I will stop here. Oh, some first day of issues stamps, and from a stamp collection that's been in the family forever. This is like just a tiny portion of it I was looking at the other day. So thank you so much, everyone, and take a look at the other authors. There's lots of fun videos out there. Support your local indie.